talk a little bit about the FDI policy, as sources seem to indicate that the cabinet will be, in fact, taking a call on the spectrum auction in its meeting on Wednesday, this a day after it announced the big ticket FDI liberalization. In fact, let's go across then to Supriya Srinath, who joins in with the big exclusive story. Supriya, let's start off by what exactly you're picking up in terms of which sectors are now going to be in focus.
So the two sectors that we are picking up will be in focus as far as the cabinet meeting tomorrow is concerned is the textile sector, which has been really reeling under the global slowdown, and of course the woes and the competition that's coming in from places like Vietnam, Philippines. Of course, given the China slowdown, the government believes this is the best time to attack and get a pie of that market. And the other sector is obviously a sector that continues to be in news, and that is telecom, because remember, spectrum auctions are long pending there. We're given to understand it could happen by July or August, but it will be done only after the cabinet gives its nod on many issues as far as the spectrum auction is concerned. So the two big sectors in focus, and like you rightly pointed out there, less than 24 hours after pushing the pedal on FDI liberalization and opening up the floodgates across 9 sectors there, the government is now focusing on economic decisions that were pending in India, and the two important ones will be the textile sector that is going to be blessed with the new national textile policy and spectrum auctions, because the cabinet alone can pave the way for the spectrum auction to happen.
What are the specifics that you have on the textile policy?
So, Aisha, it's a good question that you ask as specifics are concerned, because textile as a sector has been reeling under a lot of global slowdown. I mean, exports have fallen for 17 months consecutively, and if you actually see the share of textile, it has gone down substantially, and that's not based on just value or volumes. It's also based on the fact that there is a lot of competition that's coming in from smaller countries like Vietnam and Indonesia, Philippines there. And so the idea of the government is to not just boost manufacturing here in India, but to also get the global guys to come and make here. There are two big aims as far as the new national textile policy is concerned. One is to generate about 35 million additional jobs, and the second, of course, is to boost the share of textile exports alone to $300 billion by fiscal year 2025. So both ambitious targets in 9 odd years. This is what the government is looking at doing. What we're given to understand is that there will be a lot of incentives that could be announced for the MSME sector. Remember, we're also given to understand tax breaks and tax stops of a certain kind could also be announced. We've been picking up from our sources right now that global brands could be wooed in, could be brought in, could be incentivized to set up supply chain in India, because textile around the world has a very peculiar way of working, and one of the ways is that they do have supply chains. It is supply chains alone that works very well for a sector like textile. And then, of course, the very important point will be of FTAs, because remember, textile as a sector wants FTAs. Textile as a sector has been crying for FTA with regions like Europe, and I think the balancing act will be whether you should have the FTA with Europe because auto doesn't want it, or you should not because, of course, textile wants it very much. It almost depends on its survival as far as these FTAs is concerned. So that's exactly what we're picking up: incentives for MSME, tax breaks, FTAs, and of course global supply chains being wooed to set up here.
In fact, let's get in then Sanjay Kapoor, former CEO Bharti Airtel, to talk a little bit more on this big breaking story, who is going to be in conversation with us. Thank you so much for joining in. To start off with, wanted to know how you are reacting to the news of the cabinet is going to now likely approve the pricing, timing, as well as the quantum of these spectrum auctions. Mr. Kapoor, before we come across to you, Supriya, let's take across that conversation then with Sanjay Kapoor.
Yeah, before I take across that conversation, it's important to put out the news that we want to tell our viewers here, and which is why we have Sanjay Kapoor on air. I'm wondering if we've baffled him by making him talk on textile. But Sanjay, we're also picking up at this stage that the Union Cabinet will give its final nod as far as pricing, timing, quantum of spectrum auction is concerned. The government has said for a while now that this is the largest ever spectrum auction. 700 megahertz is being put up for auction for the first time. The government has very ambitious targets of over 5 lakh crore rupees being collected. But of course, the industry is not at all gung-ho about it. Many big industry stalwarts have said they may not even participate in 700 megahertz auctions because they are very well to do with the spectrum that they have right now. So let me take over the spectrum story with you, Sanjay, and talk to you about the cabinet nod that is going to come tomorrow on some of the issues that we've discussed. Do you expect this spectrum auction to also equally generate the euphoria that previous spectrum auctions have, or do you believe that the industry, which usually says they will not participate and then eventually do, are serious about really not being gung-ho this time?
Look, Supriya, at the end of the day, there are some basic economic theories that cannot be ruled out. And there's a theory around the diminishing marginal returns and marginal utility. Now, that holds good for anything. When you use any additional unit of commodity, and in this case, spectrum, then obviously with every additional unit that you consume, the marginal utility tends to decline. If I hold that theory, then obviously we all know that a lot of participation happened on spectrum the last time, and much of it is not even deployed and refarmed as yet, because operators are holding on to that spectrum and putting in equipment and trying to refarm much of that towards more efficient technologies of 3G and 4G. If that is true, then the capacity of some of these operators immediately to invest behind more spectrum and then compromise on user experience that's required to be improved through electronics and other things, including backhaul, may suffer. So they might make a call and say, we don't want more spectrum right now because we have enough. We are refarming what was already available for 2G to 3G and 4G, and therefore we can hold our breath and probably not participate right now and do it later. And also the fact that trading of spectrum, sharing of spectrum is becoming more liberal. So there are some alternate strategies that might come into play as well. And therefore, it's very difficult to say how people will behave and how operators will behave this time as compared to last time. We also have to keep in mind that when initial auctions of 2.1 gigahertz happened and then 2.3 gigahertz happened, for whatever reasons, there was some artificial shortage created of spectrum, and therefore there were more takers at that time and liberalization was happening versus what was available, and therefore there was heated competition and bidding for the same amount of spectrum, and therefore the prices had to go northwards. Will that be the same repeat this time? I'm not too sure of that.
Fair point. Sanjay, just hold your thoughts there. I'm going to talk and discuss spectrum in just far more details, but I also want to talk about the big picture as far as these two decisions are concerned. And Mr. S. Narayan, Sudeep Bandyopadhyay and Sachin Jain are also joining us on the phone line. Mr. Narayan, if I may begin to talk to you about the decisions that New Delhi is looking to take 24 hours within opening the floodgates for FDI. Here are two big economic decisions. The Union Cabinet will give its consent on the new textile policy in the works for a very long time and perhaps warranted for a very long time, given how the textile sector has been in acute pain. The broad contours is what we've told our viewers, but given the timing of this policy, how crucial do you think this is for the sector right now?
No, the textile sector is a little bit stressed, particularly because of high cotton prices. And I think we are losing opportunities in the export market to Bangladesh. We have been continuously losing market to Bangladesh and Vietnam. So a revival of that sector, because millions of weavers and millions of people are employed in this sector. So I think it's a very, very important sector, and anything that happens to this sector will be very good, will be very welcome. So let us look at the outlines of the policy, and I think the policy should be framed within the requirements of technology, of finance, of bringing in new products, of new ideas. And I think this is an area where we can look at Bangladesh to see what they have done and try to do something very similar.
Right. And Bangladesh has taken away substantial business that India could actually boast of. But my specific questions on the textile policy, sir, is that textile for a very, very long time has been crying for the need to have an FTA with Europe. We interviewed Nirmala Sitharaman a couple of months back, and she said it's a huge balancing act because auto is vehemently opposed to this and textile wants it very much. So my question to you specifically is, do you believe it's time the government throws its weight behind an FTA with Europe as far as textile is concerned? And the other bit, sir, is that how important will be tax SOPs for the sector at this stage?
The two parts. I think our FTA experience, whether with the ASEAN countries or whether with many, we have nearly 20-25 FTAs in place. But after the FTAs come into place, the use of the FTAs by the industry on both sides has been very minimal. I think there's a very detailed study which has come out now, which says that the industry doesn't really use these FTAs. So the textile sector wants Europe and the automobile sector doesn't want Europe. I think we have to look very carefully to see whether is this the only way we can help the textile sector And tying up with the second question, whether some tax or other kinds of incentives will not balance out what they are going to get out of the FTA. Maybe that's a quicker and a simpler way of benefiting the sector.
So hold your thoughts there and let's actually get market reactions to this move. And Sudeep Bandyopadhyay, if I may take the question to you, the government of course tried to lift market sentiment and very successfully did when it did announce the FDI policy and you know the 9 sectors that have been liberalized further and game-changing reforms like 100% FDI in civil aviation or defense. Just yesterday and today we're picking up that the cabinet is going to take up these 2 crucial proposals. From a market standpoint of view, is the market convinced that the pedal on reforms is going to be accelerated even further?
Absolutely. I think today's development is definitely looks like extremely positive, and new textile policy is something which was a crying need for the sector. I just heard Mr. Narayan talk about India losing market share, and I think that's a crying need. You know, this is one sector where India had a clear leadership opportunity, and we lost that out to countries like Bangladesh and Vietnam, which otherwise are very badly managed and governed countries. You know, even if we can't get our act together in this space, where I think it's very easy for India to beat competition and become a world leader, I think it's a matter of regret. I think the government is trying to bring together a policy which will rejuvenate this industry. And remember, this sector has the potential to create significant number of jobs and, create a significant virtuous cycle in the country itself. So overall, I think this is going to be a huge positive for the economy as well as, employment generation and the sector in particular.
Right. Absolutely, 35 million additional jobs. But I want to take a quick question with Sanjay because I don't want him to be wasting his time and listening to this textile discussion. And Sanjay, I'm going to let you go after that. 5 lakh crore is what, over 5 lakh crore, 5.6 actually to be precise, is what the government is eyeing as far as this next round of spectrum auction is concerned. Too ambitious and too tall an order there, you would believe? Or do you believe these are realistic figures given what we've seen and given the pattern that one can trace in the past?
Look, from a positive perspective, for the first time now we are saying that we have a visibility of the next 2000 megahertz of spectrum, which means it's not being rationed, it's not being controlled, we are being transparent, right? The prices in any auction have to be decided through a market mechanism, and the market mechanism will determine whether 5 lakh crore come or 1 lakh crore comes or 10 lakh crore comes. But I think what is important for us to understand is that the physical infrastructure now has to be complemented with a very robust virtual infrastructure that India has to create. And I think to improve the experience of the consumers on data, to make India competitive with the rest of the world, I think it is paramount that the spectrum that has been bought earlier is put to good use, efficient use, and improve the customer experience going forward. And I hope that for now, all operators will put their monies behind that spectrum that already sits with them to enhance. Of course, spectrum like 700 megahertz is very potent to provide data indoors, and we all know that 80% of the data gets consumed indoors. So I think 700 still, given the scenario, will be something that some operators will go for because it really allows them to differentiate with other operators in the market. But overall, 2000 megahertz of spectrum is not going to get auctioned at one go. It will take time, and all operators will do it at their pace because they want to put the money, which is limited, available to them to enhance the customer experience before they enhance, more and more spectrum in their kitty. So I think there's a balance that will happen. After the last round, my pick is that operators will go behind improving the customer experience and create a difference around the existing spectrum rather than holding more spectrum for future. But in the long run, will all the spectrum go away? Answer is yes. Because if you look at the Western countries, even 100 megs of spectrum with an operator is falling short because the data consumption is really surprising everybody globally. So that's the path that we will follow. But I think for now, we need to get the user experience right. And the best use of money is to go behind improving and put to use the existing spectrum that is sitting with them.
Fair point indeed, Sanjay. We thank you for joining us on the telecom part of that news, but I do want to take that discussion forward with Mr. Sachit Jain of Vardhaman Group, who's been with us very patiently. And Mr. Jain, this certainly is news that you've been waiting for many, many months. Is this going to bring in the much-needed relief for the textile sector?
There are two parts to it. I don't think the textile sector really needed much relief. The textile sector has been doing pretty okay the last few years. What we've been talking as an industry is there's a huge opportunity that we are missing out. We are currently at about our market share as a country is about 5% of the global trade. And this can easily move up to 10% because as China is becoming more expensive and more buyers want to diversify away from China, so this is an opportunity which can easily be grabbed by India. Unfortunately, in the last few years, this opportunity has been taken by Bangladesh and Vietnam. It would be incorrect to say that they have taken away share from India. It's just that what could have come to India has been taken by them, and they have grown very rapidly. As industry, CII Textile Committee had hired BCG to prepare a report for the government, and we hope that 50 million jobs can be created over the next 10 years. And this is the biggest opportunity for the government because of skilling easily skillable people, a lot of women coming into this industry. So the opportunities to address all the objectives of the government can happen from this industry.
All right, Mr. Jain, before I let you, before I wrap this up, I must ask you a very quick question on the need for FTAs. And one of the contours of the policy that we are picking up, besides, of course, incentivizing MSME and some tax breaks and getting the global brands to put up their supply chains here, is that they are looking at FTAs to ensure that India maintains its competitive advantage. How much of a breather are FTAs going to be as far as the textile sector is concerned?
If we look at an FTA with Europe, this would be crucial for all that we need in terms of making what is possible. Please understand that, of course, any FTA will have some issue with other sectors of the industry. But we have to see 50 million jobs at stake. A large part of it will be because of exports to Europe. Please understand, Bangladesh has duty-free access to Europe. Pakistan has duty-free access to Europe. Vietnam will have duty-free access to the US. India does not have duty-free access to any of these countries. Of course, to Japan, we have an FTA, but Japan, it's very difficult to export finished garments to Japan. So if we get an FTA with Europe, and if automobile industry or something, they'll have some issues, it will only be high-end automobiles. Some of them may come from Europe. I don't think the lower end or the mass automobiles are going to come from Europe. So we have to balance the whole thing, and the possibility of those job creation would be huge. So we are pushing for an FTA with Europe.
All right, Mr. Narayan, quick closing comments from you. Two big decisions as far as two important sectors are concerned coming at the backdrop of the FDI liberalization. Okay, I'm given to understand Mr. Narayan's line has been dropped with us, but Sudeep Bandyopadhyay, should the markets be breathing easy? Should the investor concerns be addressed at this stage that the government is going to take care of pending economic decisions? Everything that's out, at least in the executive domain, will be taken care of, and legislative agenda will be followed in Parliament. Already the right noises at least being made in the GST. But are markets convinced that everything that's in the domain of executive will perhaps be taken care of and expedited?
I think, as you rightly said, there are lots of things which in the domain of the executive management to take care of, and government is trying to do that. Parliament, they will have to see how GST gets phased out. However, these are welcome steps, and these were, I think, necessary and critical for the, growth of the economy, generation of employment. And the government is taking steps in the right direction. Markets will definitely be happy with both these steps. Textile policy was a crying need, and I think we are coming out with a balanced and appropriate policy will definitely go a long way in pushing up the economic growth of the country.
Fair point indeed. Economic growth of the country, and that really is a resounding yes as far as these decisions are concerned. Sudeep Bandyopadhyay, S. Narayan and Sanjay Kapoor, and of course Mr. Sachit Jain. Thank you very much for joining us on this leg of Markets at Lunch. We take a quick breather. We come back with markets, and Aisha and Ivana will take that action forward.
Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/ETNow, and don't forget to click the like button. You can also follow us on Twitter at ETNowLive. To stay updated with all our programming, hit the subscribe button on our YouTube channel by logging on to youtube.com/user/ETNow.